2 years ago, we did a complete STi drivetrain swap on this car. My name's Joey Montalto, and this is my 22 WRX. All right, so in this video, we're gonna go over a few things with the swap. First, we're gonna talk about why would you want to put an STi drivetrain in your 22 plus WRX. We'll go over the brief parts list that's needed, and then we'll go over the frequently asked questions. So I was waiting a while to make this video because I wanted to see the most common questions that come up or people that message me. So we'll go over all of that in this video, so stay tuned. All right, so why would you want to take your brand new car, take the transmission out, take the differential, all the axles out, and just completely swap the drivetrain over? Well, the reason is because we want to modify the car, we want to make more power, and the stock transmission design is just not going to handle the power that this engine can produce. With some basic bolt-ons like an intake, exhaust, maybe an intercooler, and E85, you could easily push over 400 foot-pounds of torque, and with this small turbo spiking the boost and like hitting that big torque number, that's a recipe to completely blow up the stock transmission. And that is why you would want to upgrade to the STi trans. It's just proven, it's known not to break. So there's no worry about having the transmission break. Also, the stock drivetrain is an open front and open rear diff. The STi does come with a LSD in the front and back, and then you do have a DCCD controller, which we also have hooked up in this car. It's not necessary to have the DCCD hooked up when you first do the swap, but you will need just the harness from IWire, basically just to plug the transmission into the stock harness, so you have your speed and RPM, and then you have the gear shift indicator as well. So everything will work with just like a $70 harness. You don't need to get the full DCCD Pro controller or anything. Now that being said, if you don't have the DCCD controller, you can't go on the dyno, is what I heard. So you will need the controller to go on the dyno, but with technology nowadays and with the access port, you can do e-tuning like what I did on the street, where you send logs to your tuner, and then you get your tunes back every revision, and then until you get your final tune. So you don't need to go on the dyno to get the car calibrated. So next is the brief parts list that we use for this, and that kind of goes hand in hand with basically all of the frequently asked questions. All the questions have to do with what parts we used and just I guess confirming what I had on the swap. So I actually used a 2014 STi donor trans axles and diff. I did have to source a 2015 plus Driveshaft. So the Driveshaft for 2015 is a little bit longer than 2008 to 2014. So the Driveshaft length is a little bit longer. And that's basically it. That's basically all you need. Then you need obviously the adapter harness to hook up the trans to the wire harness. Besides that, that's basically it. Once the transmission came in, now I did assess the healthiness of the trans. Once it got here, it got into all gears. I did notice some of the bushings and mainly the reverse lockout. So the reverse lockout is kind of like the WRX, where you have like the pull cable or the pull thing in the on the shifter, and there's a cable that goes into the trans. So that was really frayed on mine, and that bearing or the bushing that goes on the trans was kind of rusty. So I ended up just buying just a new reverse cable, carport short shifter with the front and rear shifter bushing. Now on the 22 WRX, on the stock transmission and the stock shifter, it's a shifter box that just bolts to the interior basically. It's like 4 or 5 bolts that bolt it down. And on the STi, it's the same thing, but then you have a shifter linkage, and one bolts to the back, the rear shifter bushing, and the front goes to the trans for the front shifter bushing. So it's kind of cool to see when you do the swap. And if you check out the videos that we have on our channel for the swap, now there is a playlist. So if you guys go in the channel and search on my playlist, you will see there's one specifically for the swap only. But you'll see that there are provisions for the rear shifter bushing, because that actually gets bolted on, and that's a separate piece of sheet metal that's like spot welded onto the transmission tunnel, and they're just like not used at all stock. So it was extra work for Subaru to put that on the car for them not to use them at all. It's just an indication that maybe an STi was supposed to come out. And then last minute they kind of got axed, and then we got the WRX. Now, I know the S210 just came out and or is coming out, and I don't even think that's even a real STi. Only comes in an automatic transmission. It's under 300 horsepower. This car with just a tune would be faster than that car. Now, it does come with some cool bells and whistles here and there, but overall, value is not there. But this video is not about that. So some of the frequently asked questions, we'll just bounce around here, are the axles. The front and rear axles are slightly shorter on the STi versus the WRX. They work perfectly fine. So when I put the axles in so everyone only talks about the rear axles. No one talked about the front. So when I did the swap, I assumed the fronts were the same length. So when I put them all side to side, the fronts are just as short as the rear. So I don't know why people only talked about the rears in the beginning. Oh, the rears don't fit, yada, yada, yada. They do fit, and they work perfectly fine. So we do have stock rear axles in the back. So when I slid the axle into the diff and slid it into the hub, I didn't have to do anything. The threads were already exposed and like poking out. I just hand tightened the new axle nut on, torqued it down, and then dented it where you're supposed to. There's a little spot where you dent it. Literally super easy, no issues with it. Now in the future, I did have to replace those axles because right when I put them on, I noticed that they were weeping a little bit. The axle seals, the axle boots were weeping a little bit. So I did put clamps on them to tighten them down a little bit, but just over time they were just slinging a little bit of grease. And I mean, it's a brand new car, or it was a brand new car at the time, basically. Now it's 3 years old. But brand new car, so I was like, hey, it needs brand new axles. So I ended up getting 2 brand new OEM axles, put them on in the back, no issues with that, and I still have them on. Now I've done many launches with them. I went to the drag strip, did a couple quarter-mile passes, done many roll hits, and the axles just work. Stock axles work. The next is the drive shaft. So I get a lot of questions about the drive shaft. The stock drive shaft works. I still have it. It's in the corner over there. A lot of people ask me, did I upgrade the drive shaft because the stock one didn't fit? Well, I'm sorry, but that's kind of a dumb question, because I upgraded the drive shaft almost a year after the swap. So you're saying I didn't drive my car for a full year, like with the stock drive shaft? That's just ridiculous. I did many launches with the stock drive shaft, no issues at all. I have shops sometimes reach out to me about how did I make the stock drive shaft work. I don't know how to make it any easier. In the video, it kind of time-lapsed over it because it was literally that easy. You slide it into the transmission, you put the 2 bolts in for the carrier bearing, and then it's like a 1/4 inch short, or just about a 1/4 inch. So you literally just grab it with one hand and it just slides right on, and the other hand puts the bolt in. So I mean, no fancy tools, just my hands, and I'm not strong, like super strong or anything. It's just grab it. It mats right to the differential, put the bolts in, and you're done. Like, it was literally that easy. No questions, just bolted right on. So if you're having an issue with that, I don't know, I can't help you, because it literally just went on as easy as that. I only upgraded to the PST carbon fiber drive shaft because I wanted to upgrade it. There are many benefits of doing a carbon fiber drive shaft besides it just being lightweight. It's one of the few mods that you can do to the car that actually could lower the NVH, because with the stock drive shaft, you are bolting that to the transmission tunnel basically. So there is some like NVH is transferred through the cabin from the drive shaft because it is directly bolted to the car. With the carbon fiber one, it's just a straight shot from the trans to the diff. It bolts right up, nothing fancy. And there's no bolts that hold it to the transmission tunnel. So when I put it on, I did notice a slight reduction in NVH and a slight increase in performance as well. Who did the swap and how long did it take? So I did the swap here in the garage on YouTube. You can check out that on my playlist. The swap took a few days. Now, I didn't work on it every single day, so it took the better part of a week. But just to like break it down into what I did each day. So like day one I felt was pretty productive. We got basically the whole rear end swapped out. We got the stock diff and axles and drive shafts taken out, and we got the STi diff and axles put in. And they're basically the rear end was done. Day two was prepping to get the transmission out. So we got like the front axles out. We got everything taken apart up top. And then I think the next day we got the transmission out and the new clutch and flywheel installed. So we did use a stock STi flywheel. I didn't want to use a lightweight flywheel. There's a lot of reasons behind that. You can do your own research about lightweight flywheels versus like an OEM. I like having the heavier one, just more inertia between gears. The car doesn't die down as much, especially with the turbo, but whole different topic. You can look into that. And then we did pair that up with an ACT Extreme pressure plate with the street clutch, full face clutch diff. So it's not a 6-puck or 4-puck. It's still a full face organic clutch with the extreme pressure plate. So that's good to, I believe it's 590 foot-pounds of torque. So it's plenty for what we're doing right now. Now that is a significant increase in pedal feel once that clutch was installed. But once you get used to it, honestly, I really like it. It does have a higher engagement point. But like I said, once you get used to it, it's a great clutch. Another frequently asked question I get is, or what issues I had with the swap since it's been installed. And I think I briefly touched up on one of the issues I had. The axles were leaking after I got them installed. And I guess that just has to do with the age of the swap. So you don't know, that is a variable with a lot of these transmissions. You don't know how they were treated, how long they sat outside, if there's fluid in them or not. So like when my trans got here, before putting it in, I knew there were a few things I needed to like upgrade on it, or just like maintenance, like the new lockout cable. I got new drain plugs. I didn't know if they looked like rusty and stuff. So I just got fresh everything. After we got everything installed, I noticed the front of the transmission was leaking in the garage. Every time I backed out, there was a couple little drops here and there. That ended up being the passenger side front axle seal. So the axle was fine. It's the seal that goes on the transmission. So it's these rubber seals with like a steel ring on the inside. It ended up being bad. So we ended up swapping that out. We did have a video of doing that. So it really wasn't that bad, but you did have to pull the axle, pull the seal, and then kind of just like hammer it in. And then once we got the axle put back in, the leak was gone. And then probably the worst thing that happened, which we did talk about in a different video, It was like the third time I drove the car at the swap. We drove it to Cars and Coffee, and we walked around, did our thing, and it was super hot that day because I think we did the swap in like June, July, so it was hot. So we get back into the car, try to start it, and it is just dead. The starter is just completely shot. And now the starter did sound it's funny because right before we left, I started the car with my wife in the car, and we both looked at each other because the starter sounded really bad. But I mean, the car started out up without a hiccup or anything. And I looked at her, I was like, yeah, like starter's gonna die soon, ha ha, just like joking around. And sure enough, we're at Cars and Coffee and it's just dead. So pop the hood, I look down and I just kind of like knock on the starter with my knuckle a little bit, and got back in the car and I clicked it and clicked the start button and it turned on. I looked at her and I was like, we're going straight home. And I ordered a starter right when I got home. And it was one of those things, again, just kind of like with the axle, like it's a new car. So I ended up just getting a brand new OEM starter directly from Subaru, a little bit extra money. I know you could get like a reman one at like Advanced Auto Parts or AutoZone, but just wanted peace of mind. If you get OEM brand new, I mean, you're just not gonna have an issue. I've never had to replace a starter on a Subaru. All the Subarus that I've had, the starters have always worked. So that, like, I'm just like, if I bought a brand new starter, I just know I would not have that issue ever again. And we haven't had that issue. And I guess the last FAQ, it kind of goes, I guess I have two, but they kind of are together, is how much did the swap cost and like what happened with my stock transmission and everything. So the swap, I did make a whole video about the cost. I believe it was around $6,500 for all the parts and everything I did. That did not include the DCCD controller. I did that later on. And the stock transmission. So the stock transmission was perfectly fine when we took it out. I did try selling it on Facebook Marketplace, and there's just no demand for it. Like, sure, it's a brand new trans, and like you look up the value of it on Subaru like parts, and like, yeah, it's like a $6,000 or $5,000 transmission directly from Subaru. But I mean, no one is going to pay that. So like I put it online for $2,000 for the trans, diff, axles, like everything, the whole drivetrain. And I mean, of course no one wanted it. Who needs a stock transmission? And if you blow up your stock transmission, it's probably because you probably have some aftermarket parts, and why are you going to buy another stock transmission put in the car? So I was not successful in selling it on Facebook Marketplace. I eventually put it on eBay. For the same price. I think I put up for $2,500 because like eBay has like so many fees and everything, and that ended up being like a big pain because since I'm not like a big seller like in general, so like when you sell something big on eBay, they held the money for 60 days. So the transmission and everything, like altogether, I was getting just shy of $2,000 after the miscellaneous fees from eBay. So it was like $1,956, something like that. And the person that bought it lived in Colorado, and I had to pay to ship it. Shipping was $900, and it wasn't easy to ship. So like I had a pallet that the transmission came on, so I loaded up the stock transmission on the pallet, saran wrapped it, zip tied it, tied everything down. And I had the shipping company, STi's, do a home pickup and drop it off at the guy's house in Colorado. And I had to pay for that out of pocket. So it was just a big pain in the ass. Like, you sell this thing for $2,000, you get no money, and then you have to spend almost $1,000 out of your pocket to ship it, and then I had to wait 60 days to get $2,000, so I'm only making $1,000 out of everything, but I had to put $1,000 almost up front just to ship it. So like it was just super big headache to sell it, but I did selling it, and I made about, like I said, about $1,000, a little bit more than 1,000, less than 1,100, but I made about $1,000 back from selling everything. And then yeah, that was a nice little bonus once that sold, so that was kind of nice. But yeah, major pain. But we got a lot more things coming for this car. We are waiting for Cobb's Flex Fuel to come out. That's our next step as far as power goes. We are running a G3900 with the ETS turbo kit. So we have an IAG high pressure fuel pump. So we have some fuel mods. We have a turbo on it. So we have all the recipe. We have all the parts to make some power. We're just waiting on that Cobb Flex Fuel to come out any day. There were rumors it was going to come out this month in January, but maybe it's going to be February because it is the end of the month already. So until next time, see you guys. All right, 2 bonus quick FAQs. First one, was there a change in gas mileage with the swap? No, I did not notice any change in gas mileage with the swap. Bonus question number 2, are the gears longer? No, I don't think the gears are any longer. They might be 1 or 2 mile an hour quicker or longer. So instead of like 50, it goes to 52. The main reason why I can get 60 in second gear is because we have raised the red line to 7,000 RPMs.